if my husband says, you never take out the trash, and then I get triggered over a deficiency story, as if he's saying, there's something wrong with me as a person. Instead of just hearing what he's saying, take out the trash, or what I don't hear that. Let's say I'm triggered, and what I feel is, I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. There's something wrong with me. And then the feeling with that. Now, once that feeling of woundedness comes up, and that story that I'm deficient, there's something wrong with me, notice how you can't even hear what the other person said. In a sense, there may have been some energy behind it, how they said that, but what they're saying is the trash needs to be taken out. That's all. But the consciousness might hear, I'm not good enough, and feel I'm not good enough. Now, here's the thing. When you're overtaken by that story, you can't, again, hear what the person said. And you're in that story. So, one, you're not learning that the trash needs to be taken out. You're focused on your story, your woundedness. And two, you're not transcending the trigger because you're believing it. This is the source of a lot of issues in romantic relationships, is that people getting tripped up on their deficiency story instead of hearing information. So imagine that I heard my partner, this is not something that my husband said. My ex-husband and I had this issue where he would say things like this and I'd get triggered. It doesn't really happen much anymore. But, so I've had the experience then of being clear when people say that. So if people say today, you should take the trash out. Why'd you do it this way? You shouldn't have done that. You should have done this. The woundedness isn't coming up. So there's clarity, emotional clarity in that moment. So then I can hear the information. The person is just saying the trash needs to be taken out. That's important information. The trash needs to be taken out. So you can hear it and function better because you're actually hearing information, not getting defensive around it. Now the person could be saying anything. I'm just about trash. Anything. Let's say the person is saying, Scott, you're blocked. You can't see this story in your head. Instant defensiveness. So that's perfect because then I won't actually look at what the person is saying. So instead, what I'm going to be believing is there's something wrong with me. I'm not lovable. I'm not good enough. He doesn't support me, whatever. We're in that. And that's a really good way to avoid hearing what they said. So what if there's clarity in that moment? You just hear what they say. Scott, you're blocked around something. There's something you can't see. Really, it's like the trash. It's like the trash thing. The trash needs to be taken out. I'm blocked around something. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me look at this now. And then I can go right into inquiry on that. To see for myself whether there's a block. Good information coming from them, but I have to see it for myself. But I really can't do that if the first thing that happens is I'm deficient, feeling wounded, because I'm not even going to be open to what you said at that point. I'm just going to be open to making you wrong and me right. This is a really good reason to do deficiency story work in a relationship of any kind, so that we can hear people and stop avoiding what other people are trying to tell us. Doesn't mean we have to take on everything that people are saying, but the question is, if we don't believe what they're saying, then where's the harm in the information? So someone calls me a narcissist, for example. Okay, let's say that hurts. How dare you? I'm not a narcissist. Now I'm in defense mode. I'm in a deficiency story. Like I'm a narcissist, or there's something wrong with me, or I'm hurt over that. Can't hear the information. So I'm in defense and attack mode. I'm in woundedness, trauma. Can't hear it. So I'll remain blocked to that person because they've hurt me. And I won't hear the information. What if the information is ultimately harmless? What if when someone says, Scott, you're a narcissist, you go, really? Let me look. I'm not a narcissist. Yes, I am. I see this. I believe this. I believe that. Now I can see, oh, what they're saying has some truth to it in the sense that I believe it. And all that defense and attack is because I didn't want to know that I believe that. I didn't want to face those feelings. So I can't transform when I'm triggered until I look. See that? So what if the information is ultimately harmless? So someone says, I'm a narcissist, and I look and I get to feel everything that that brings up. And then let's say I see it and I see through it, and then it's like, thank you. Because I couldn't have the clarity that I have now if you hadn't called me that. Thanks. But just like how we normally don't do that. As soon as someone says something, we're defensive and wounded or angry. And then we can't take the information in. We can't transform beyond that. And then if there's a pattern of that in relationship, ongoing conflict, aggression, toxicity even, because of an inability to hear each other. To me, a really healthy relationship might look in different ways, but here's one way that it could look, is that you don't just walk on eggshells around each other to protect each other's feelings, but you're also not overtly mean, unless of course it's coming from trauma, in which case you have to take a look at that. That all of these things, this information that we're getting from people around us, they're all helping us wake up if we pay attention. So I think it's even been said somewhere like your worst enemies are your best teachers. Those kinds of pithy spiritual sayings sound really good, but they're actually pointing to something very deep and transformative. Like it's literally true. I mean, relatively. That our worst enemies are the people that trigger us the most, are the ones that are going to help us wake up the most. If you're surrounded by people who are yes people, who are always walking on eggshells with you because they don't want you to react, then you're going to have some difficulty transforming in that environment because the people aren't even being authentic with you. You treat people, we learn to have people treat us the way we believe about ourselves. What's that phrase? I teach people to treat me a certain way. So if I'm someone who's not open to looking at my own stuff and I just get upset a lot, then people might walk on eggshells around me. And then I can't transform. There could be no transformation because there's no authenticity. They're holding back to protect me. I'm trying to protect myself from pain so I don't get to meet my pain ever, or very rarely. Is that really the kind of environment that's conducive to awakening? Really awakening? Now imagine a different scenario where you're around people who are not afraid to say things to you. And then you become open not to take those things on and believe them, but to use each one of them to wake you up from your defense, your attack, your ego. And then if that's the case, then there's an accelerated freedom coming. Because now instead of avoiding in relationship, you're using relationship to wake up out of ego. It's not going to be comfortable though. And I think because we like to avoid pain, maybe we like to avoid inquiry. But just know that when you're triggered, you're already in pain. So you're not avoiding it. It's there. You really can't because when you're in pain. But notice that when you're in pain, one way that we avoid it is just putting the pain back on the person. So they hurt me. I'm hurt. Hurt people hurt people. Now I'm hurt. Now I'm going to put that hurt back on you. And then we fall right asleep right there. But even that is a way in because everything that we're doing in relationship is designed to wake us up. So even putting my pain on someone else, I can see I'm avoiding it. Because to not avoid pain would be literally just to be here with it as it is. And to be conscious of the unconscious thoughts that are connected to it because they like to hide. So bringing up an inquiry, those unconscious thoughts, and then just literally being with it in awareness, that's transformative. That allows you to see that this thought and this feeling are fully allowed, not avoided, but they're also not what you are because they fall away into the awareness, leaving the experience of what you are as the presence in which it's all happening. So it's not going to be comfortable. But if you could understand that we're not really avoiding pain, we're doing something with it. That's not very skillful to say it that way. When we sometimes think when we're reacting to someone that we're facing our pain, and maybe in a sense we are. But what I'm saying is that if I focus too much on the other person, then I don't get to see the stories about what I'm believing about myself. And the stories that I believe about myself are the things that really create the suffering. If someone else calls me a narcissist, but I don't believe that myself, or I don't see that pattern, there's no suffering. If the person says that and I've taken that on or taking something on as a result of that, and I thought, and I did, that's where the suffering is. So, although we have to express to people sometimes to stay out of repression, once you start doing that, you recognize, still though, okay, I'm able to express it, but I'm not fully facing it yet. So what in the expression of my anger or my shame or my hurt towards someone else, the question then becomes, what am I believing? What's behind that? And if you look, a lot of the times, again, it's a deficiency story. It looks like anger, it looks like aggression, but it's coming from a sense of fear, also deficiency story. It's like defending who you think you are. So you can imagine someone calling me a narcissist. Like, if I get triggered by that, it was because I must think that I'm something. Oh, I think I'm good. I think I'm spiritual. I think I'm a good person. And the narcissist thing just, that doesn't go with how I see myself. I'm not a good person. That's not what I am. We're not good people or bad people, ultimately. We're just aware. We're awake. So you can see that when someone calls you a negative comment, one of the reasons why you think it could be while you're getting defensive about that is because, for example, you believe otherwise. You've attached the identity that you're not that already. But it also may be hitting something very core for you, like the narcissism label or some other label might be bringing up shame or a feeling like maybe I am like that, and a belief in that. There again is something to look at. I've seen people in relationship. I know one person that I saw recently who was like always on the verge of tears because everything that she's hearing from her husband is taken on personally and sort of identifying with being a victim. And that relationship is very painful to watch because they're not using each other to wake up. They're using each other to hurt each other only, very unconscious. The question is, what kind of relationship do you want? I mean, maybe on some level you want to identify with the pain or being a victim. That can be looked at. But it's really just a matter of filtering the information differently, like seeing it differently. So instead of in the moment when a husband says that to you, look at what you're believing right then. Because if you don't believe it, you don't identify with it, how could that ever be hurtful? If you write in the comments section that I'm the worst spiritual teacher you've ever heard before, that won't matter unless I believe something around that. See that? You're not any different, right? If I were to say something to you, it's only going to hit you. It's only going to touch your buttons or click your button if you're already believing something. So deficiency stories are a way to avoid. When they come up, they avoid us looking at the issue that's being brought up because we're focused on our identity in that moment. and we also can't transcend. So the person that I was talking about, the lady who just continually feels like a victim, that relationship is being used to reinforce identity for her. And that's a very painful place to be in a relationship. But you can begin to turn that around just by becoming skillful so that your pain transmutes to freedom, to peace, to clarity. It transmutes before your eyes, before your awareness, each time your husband hurts you with words or whatever else. And then relationship is being used as a catalyst to wake up. If you use a relationship to make you happy, you're probably going to be in for some more suffering. Because ultimately, I don't think that's why they're there. We can experience happiness and contentment and love. That can happen. But other people can't make us happy, especially if we're believing in a deficiency story. Know this, that as long as we believe in a deficiency story, how can we truly be content with life? Like, how can we? Because the deficiency story is constantly telling us there's something wrong with us. And then if other people around us are saying it, we're taking all that on. See what happens. But literally all of that can be used to transmute it and to wake up. There have been so many times in my past where someone said something to me, and I spent maybe a few hours or even a few days ruminating on it and feeling pain on it. And then just immediately when I started looking at it and it falls away, it's like, oh, I see what they're saying. That was really helpful because now I can see that pattern in myself. It's priceless when you can actually hear people and not filter it through the deficiency story. Because then you see that the entire universe is actually wanting you to wake up. Even if they don't know they're doing it, every one of your relationships are encouraging you to wake up. Not consciously, but they're encouraged by giving you your triggers and your trauma responses, by bringing up your deficiency story. They're your best teachers, the worst enemies. Let me leave with this, though. I'm not saying stay in a relationship that's physically violent or even verbally abusive. There's always a line. You have to set a boundary with someone like that. I'm not saying where that boundary line is. You have to discern for yourself. But I just don't want you to hear this as like, just take whatever someone else does. I'm not saying that. Boundaries are important. But even the places where you set boundary, if you have to leave a relationship, inquiry is still helpful to clear the psychic energy, the traumatic imprint from the relationship, even once you set a boundary. So boundaries don't really necessarily transform. They do some. They protect us, is what they do, and that's important. But to transform is to go beyond just setting a boundary with someone. Is boundary is now set. Let me look at what this brought up for me. Because if I don't, I'm going to carry it to the next relationship. And I'm going to be doing the same thing, setting a boundary there, not looking at my shit, going to the next person. They're all there to wake us up.